Welcome to the to this call, playing with buyers, summer strategies to help you double your income. And so let me just give me a second here while I deal with the technical aspect of this. I want to move with that. Okay. So how to get the most from this webinar is I'm going to suggest that you take a lot of notes if you can. If you're sitting somewhere, just grab a piece of paper. We're going to cover a tremendous amount on this call. Now, what you can do is text your questions in the control panel over to the right. It says questions. I've got somebody in my office who is fielding those questions. And if we have time, I will answer that. And I mean, if we have time, because there is so much in this session. I do have to do a couple of logistic things. If you want to follow some videos that I post on a regular, consistent basis or motivational stuff, Darryl Speaks is the social media handle for everything: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, which, by the way, there's a marketing tool. It's good to have one social media handle that you can monopolize on across all things there. One of the questions I get is, when am I going to be coming to your area? There's the website. So if you want to just jot that down, Power Agent Seminar, that is the website we have dedicated for my travel schedule, where I'm going to be next. Okay, so next question I get is, this webinar a sales pitch? You know, we have, no, it's not. So we're going to cover everything that I promised, but I do want to be clear for those of you that have not been on these webinars before, because we do these monthly. These are actually for our students, our power agents. These are agents who are in our membership program. So from time to time, I'm going to be speaking to the power agents directly. And but you're still going to get value. So you're invited, because the content that I'm going to give you is just off the hook awesome. Yeah. And but for those of you that are not familiar with the power program or being a power agent, if you want to become one, if you'll see that website there at the bottom called thepowerprogram.com/webinar bonus, you can become power agent today. One of the gifts we're giving you is a copy of all the slides and a recording of the webinar. So all power agents get that. Just to give the non-power agents about 60 seconds to understand what the program is, it's only $27 a month. You cancel anytime if you choose to. The first 30 days is free. We're actually going to be changing that, where we're going to be making it only 2 weeks free. So I think this is going to be the last month we're doing that. You get a copy of today's slides. Now, just to bring everybody up to speed, because I also want to talk to new power agents, people who have just joined us in the past few weeks, that when you log into the dedicated website we have for you, there's what we call the classroom, and the classroom is broken up into categories of real estate. I am teaching from, you'll see in that second row over to the right, it says playing with buyers. I'm going to be teaching from that. When you click on any one of those tabs, there is just a tremendous amount of content for you: scripts or dialogues and flyers and checklists. This is just a sample of, so there's literally over 250 different things. Now we have a tab that's called What's New. Now, power agents, I do want to reference something before I get into the buyer topic. In What's New, this is July. It says July in the computer, but there's an August tab now. We just uploaded dialogue for follow-up to an open house. One of the questions that we've gotten from power agents is, when you do an open house, how do you follow up with the buyers? That is in the What's New section. Okay, so let's see. So that's that. Coaching calls. Don't forget, power agents, every week, every Monday, there is our coaching calls where it's one-on-one. Today's session is more of you just listening, whereas the Monday calls is dedicated, where it's an open call where you can actually talk to me and ask questions. And also, don't forget the monthly interviews and the digital magazine that we give you every month. And also, I think I'm coming to the last part, is the Facebook page. I'm always uploading articles that's relevant. There's something about the real estate market that I'm going to be uploading later today in the closed Facebook group. You want to use this information in your business. So we're going to get into the content today, and we're going to start right away. So here we go. Talking about buyers, here's the first thing I want to teach you is I want to give you some concepts of playing with buyers. The first concept is you've got to have the right attitude. Being successful with buyers is partly an attitude thing. Well, actually, it's true about real estate in general, but here's the attitude that I want you to have when it comes to playing with buyers, and that is I don't need, hang on a second, gang. I've got this thing on my screen here and it's distracting. I'm trying to get rid of it. So sorry, I'm just having a technical thing and I don't know why it's not cooperating. Okay. I have the right attitude. I don't need to sell because I've got plenty of listings. So let me tell you why this is important. There's a rule of thumb in real estate that 75% of your income should come from listings sold, 25% working with buyers. Now, if you don't have a lot of listings, what we notice is that agents that don't have listings, they have this sense of desperation when it comes to revenue. So they work with buyers constantly. They'll show buyers house after house, and the buyers kind of sense this. And so the agent will want to continue to show that buyer until they buy something, and then all of a sudden it becomes like like they're working with these buyers almost every weekend to the point where they should be invited into the family because they're becoming part of the family. This is what happens when you don't have real estate business. When you have a lot of listings, even if you have some listings, you get a sense of accomplishment, a sense of confidence. You're more effective with buyers when you have listing inventory. And I think any of us on this call know that. Now, one of the things I want to remind the power agents is that we talk about building inventory as opposed to just getting listing. For power agents, if you're not using the listing inventory chart, I'm going to encourage you to start doing that. Track your listing inventory, focus on prospecting, building your shoe store, yeah? I want to remind the power agents that there is a webinar. If you go to classroom and then the next tab is webinar, there was a webinar I did on just how to generate a surge of listing in the next 90 days. I recorded that last year. It's awesome. So make sure you do that. So number two, there's basically two reasons why you would work with buyers. They're a break from listings. So your business model should be list. You take a break and then you go play with buyers, show property. The second is they're quick and easy money when you work with them the correct way. I know the thinking is in our business, they're not quick and easy, and that's because we work with them the wrong way. And I'm going to show you today on this webinar how to do that. You want to know your market when you're working with buyers. When a buyer tells you that they've seen a house and you're not familiar with it, that puts you at a disadvantage. So you've got to really know your market, because when you meet a buyer for the first time, I mean, think about it. What I want you to do, what I want you to be able to accomplish is to meet a buyer for the first time, take them out, show 5 to 7 houses, and write a contract. That's pretty amazing to do that. My power agents do that when they work with our system. Part of that is, in the first time you meet a buyer, they're not just looking at the houses, they're looking at you. And if they feel like you don't know the market, if they feel like you're not professional, they're going to be more reluctant to continue to work with you, to pull a trigger if they see a house that they really like. So it's really important when you're working with the buyers that you build that credibility right up front. Don't listen to what buyers want, because they really don't know yet. If they really knew what they wanted, they would have already bought it. So when we interview a buyer for the first time, you want to just kind of just take, sorry gang, there's my phone was just ringing because we're also on Facebook Live and I forgot to put the do not disturb on. Okay, next thing is our job description when you're working with buyers is two things. Number one is create a sense of urgency. You give buyers a chance, a choice to buy now or later. They'll always choose later. So you want to create that sense of urgency. I'm going to show you how to do that, and also manage the emotional roller coaster that buyers go through. Once they find the house that they like, it becomes a bit of emotional roller coaster. Now, again, these are concepts that I'm giving you, gang. I'm going to show you the strategies on how to do it in just a minute. You want to make sure that you don't give out the address over the phone or use MLS Prospect Match. In my opinion, this is the worst invention of what we've had in our business, because what happens is that buyers become addicted to looking, to shopping, and not buying. You've all have experienced this. I've had students tell me that this has happened, that even after a buyer had bought a house, they got phone calls from their buyers after they bought and said, you know, I'm not getting those emails anymore of houses. And the agent will say, well, because you bought me. Well, can you put me back? Because I like to just see what's happening and I like to keep looking. So really those emails that we send to buyers on a regular basis saying, hey, here's a new listing that might meet your needs. All that's doing is telling a buyer, listen, if you like a house today and it's not perfect, don't worry. Check your inbox tomorrow. There'll be another set of houses to look at. So this prospect matching, what it really does is it does the opposite of helping a buyer to pull a trigger when they find a house that they may like today, because they're always looking for the perfect house. Like some of us look for the perfect relationship. There is no perfect anything, you know? So this is what we have to, I suggest that we stop doing that. Now, let me go through how to actually handle the telephone call. So we're going to talk about the call. We're going to talk about when we meet the buyer for the first time and then show property, even how to get a listing if they have a house to sell. So when you deal with, when a buyer, let's just assume that you get an up call, right? However it comes to your phone, it comes into the office, doesn't matter. You get that initial call from the buyer. Here's what you want to do is you want to say, hi, this is Darryl Davis, who am I speaking with? And your phone number, please. Now, a lot of times they're not going to give you the phone number. If you're calling on your cell, you already have their number, so that's not important. If their call, if it's going through your office and you don't have their number, they don't give it to you, don't worry about it. That part is not important right now. Let's go on to the next thing. How may I help you? So once again, hi, this is Darryl Davis. Who am I speaking with? John? Yes, and John, can I get your number? Didn't come through on the caller ID, blah, 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 and how may I help you? And he'll say, well, I'm calling about this 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that you have advertised in Umpty-Ump Lane, in Umpty-Ump City. Say, great. Well, I know the home, John. We've been getting a lot of calls on that property. Could I ask you to hold for a moment? I just want to check the status of it or check something. Now, let me tell you why this is really powerful. What happens is, for some odd reason, buyers, they have their list of homes that they're interested. You know, they may have been online and they click this and click that. So they have these dozen houses. They're not calling to schedule 12 previews. What they're doing, some weird thing, is they say, well, there's these 12. Let me make some calls and eliminate and get down to 6. And those are the 6 that I'm going to actually want to see. So they're calling most times not committed to meeting you or seeing you, but to eliminate you. So here's what happens. I told you part of our job description with the buyers is create that sense of urgency when they first call in. So when you tell them, oh yeah, I know the home, we've been getting a lot of calls or we've been getting a lot of activity on that house. Could you hold, let me just check the status or check a couple of things. And when you put them on hold, what's happening here is they're like, wow, so I hope it's still available, is what they start to think or feel. You see, buyers want what other buyers want. So this little simple technique on step 2, right out the gate, they'll put you at the top of the list of the ones that they do want to schedule. Okay, so now you come back from hold and you say you want to start to qualify the buyer. You start to take control of the flow of the conversation, and how you do that is you come back to the call and you say, hi, Mr. John, thanks for holding. Listen, that house is still available. Let me ask you, are you calling for yourself or someone else? And say, well, it's for me and my wife. Okay, that's really great. And then you start this back and forth of asking questions. Well, let me ask you, John, this house is $400,000. Is that the price range you were looking at? Okay, great. And have you been looking for a while, or did you just start? How long in this area? So you want to start to ask a series of questions, and I don't have to go through these questions. There's a lot. Like I said, those of you that are power agents, you'll get a copy of these slides. Gang, if you want to just, anybody that's a non-power agent, make sure you pay attention to that website at the bottom there, thepowerprogram.com/webinar bonus, because there's so much content in this. You'll be able to get a copy of these slides. And instead of me, it was either cut material so I can go slower or go get all the material in. I want to get all the material in for you. Now, let's see. Can everybody hear me? I see that somebody just said my sound disappeared, and I'm assuming that is just going to be for Rochelle. Okay, good. So somebody in my office, good here. Okay, great. Rochelle, yes, thank you, everybody. God, you're so great. What a great group of agents. I love it. So anyway, here's my point, gang. When you bring them back on from hold, you say, hey, thanks for holding, the house still available, or you're calling for yourself or someone else, and they answer that question, it starts to create this back and forth where you're just asking a series of questions to kind of qualify the buyers as far as the type of buyer they are, how committed they are. Now, I will tell you this question number 7, I do want to jump to that for a second, say, are you renting now or do you own? If they say they own a house, I'm going to show you how to turn that buyer into a listing appointment if they're in your marketplace. What is the initial investment you're working with? That's how I used to say it. Now, does that include the money needed for closing, which would be about bada bing? Now, that question number 9 is not really important to most people, but in some parts of the country, for example, I think in California, some parts of California, definitely New York and Long Island, we have really high closing costs. I mean, the rule of thumb is 5% of the sales price. So if you're looking at like a $400,000 house, you're looking at $20,000 in closing costs, right? So if a buyer says that they have like 10% to put down, but that also includes what they're going to need for closing, then they really don't have 10% down. So that's why we kind of, listen, we're going to have them talk to a mortgage lender before we meet them. But I always like to just ask these couple of simple questions to get a sense of their financial health, right? Are you working with another agent? Sometimes agents have asked me, Darryl, shouldn't you ask that question right up front? No, because if they may lie to you. So if you ask the question later on, almost like question 1, question 2, how long you've been looking, did you see anything that you like, blah, 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 are you working with another agent? It's almost like it's thrown in there, and you'll get, they won't see it coming when you place it there, and you'll get a more honest answer from them. And whoops, sorry, let me go back. And may I have your email address? So that would be the last question. So we're trying to, the point here is on part 3 is we're trying to get a sense of how committed are they to buying a house, how long they've been looking, are they a serious buyer, or are they just lookers, or they just have nothing better to do and they're just curious. So at some point, they're going to interrupt you and say, or you'll be done, and they'll want to talk about the house that they called in on. So what you want to do is do a fair exchange with them, meaning that when they ask you a question about the house, for example, Darryl, let me ask you, how many bedrooms does this house have? I would say, well, John, this house has 3 bedrooms. Is that the number of bedrooms you're looking for, or do you need more? And then they would answer me, and then I would go on to the next. So what you're doing, the fair exchange is, when they ask you a question, you give them the answer, which gives you permission to ask another question. Once you feel like you've got this back and forth, you're going to now invite action. Now, we call it invite action because, as opposed to close or schedule an appointment, is our power agents, we don't close people, we coach people. We don't sell people, we serve people. So that's the philosophy of our training. So we don't close people in part 5. What we do is we invite people to take action based on what they're committed to. If somebody's committed to buying a house, then we invite them to take action that's consistent with that. And part of that action would be meeting with us. All right. So here's how you would schedule that appointment, invite action. You would confirm they want to see this house or not. If they want to see it, that's fine. You set up the appointment. Are they serious about buying a home? You might even ask them that. You know, what's their time frame? The next thing you want to do is you want to validate your company, because keep in mind, this is somebody that just called in for the first time, and they may have other agents that they plan on calling. So you want to stop them from making those other calls. So what you'll do at this point is you'll start to talk about how great your company is. You know, it's really fortunate, John, that you actually called in today and that I got to speak with you, because I don't know if you're familiar with Power Realty, but we're kind of like a one-stop shop company where we have everything at our disposal for our buyers to help them in the process of buying a home. I like to consider us like a superstore. You know, we have attorneys we recommend, title companies, home inspectors, even stagers. So we've got this team that works for us. So it's really great that you called in today. So here's what I'd like to do, John, to help you in finding a house. Is I like us to find a time when you can come in and I can share with you this process we have. It's called the 6-step buying process. It's designed to help you and your wife find a house with the least amount of aggravation. So if we can just take a look at our schedule and see when you and I can sit down, we can meet, you can come into the office. I first like to go over with you the 6-step buying process and how it works. And in addition to that, while you're here, we can go look at some of the properties that I like you to be a part of the process and us choosing which ones you want to go see. So that is, gang, essentially the overview of how you handle the initial call. Also, to finish up, I'm sorry, you do want to, as I referenced earlier, you do want to make sure that these folks talk to a lender. So if they haven't spoken to one yet, you're going to recommend it to them then before you get to meet them. Now, let's talk about the situation where a buyer actually has a house to sell. Here's how you can turn that into a listing appointment. You would confirm using this dialogue. So we are using the money from the sale of your property for the new one, aren't we? You want to be assumptive like that. Don't ask them, do you have to sell in order to buy? Because they'll say, no, I don't need to sell. I'm very successful and wealthy, and I can own 2 homes. So that you're not going to get an honest answer. So by being assumptive that, yes, of course they have to sell, because everybody does, right, before they buy, you say it that way. Once they say, yeah, we need to use the money from the sale to purchase a new one. Well, here's what I like to do, John. You tell me if this makes sense. I like to, and here's when you go through the 3 things you're going to accomplish. I want to establish value about your car. I like to come over and see your house and accomplish 3 things. Number 1 is I like to kind of get a sense of what you have, see your house, and help establish the value of your current home, because whatever monies you walk away from the sale of your home is going to dictate and influence the price range of the new home that we're buying. The second thing is establish a time frame. In other words, there might be a number that you think or need or want for your current home. Well, based on the price that you want on your, of your current home is going to really influence the time frame. How long is it going to take to get the property sold? But most importantly, John, what I like to do is by seeing your house, you can take me through and show me everything that you like about your house and everything that you don't like about your house. And what I have found is by you going through this process with me, I'll get a real crystal clear picture in my mind, the type of house you're looking for, and so that way I can find your dream home. So let's find a time when I can come over, see the house, and bada bing. So gang, that dialogue right there, that is awesome. You will take a buyer who has a house to sell and actually turn it into a listing appointment. When you get to the house, then you'll do what you're supposed to do on listing appointments. All right, so now let's talk about the 6-step buying process. So now the buyer comes into the office. What you want to do is before you take a buyer out, you want to sit down and explain to them, here's how I work. I said it earlier, one of the questions that came out was about how do you have buyers not run you ragged? Well, part of what that is setting up boundaries. What you need to do when you meet a buyer for the first time is you've got to tell them, this is how I work, this is how we're going to do this. And it's called the 6-step buying process. And here's the dialogue that I would use to introduce this. I would say, John, what I like to do, thanks for coming in, The first thing, as I mentioned on the phone, is I want to share with you the 6-step buying process. This is a process that we've come up with in my office that's designed to help you find the right house with the least amount of aggravation. And what I mean by least amount of aggravation, here's something that we've learned. If a buyer has to go out weekend after weekend, physically seeing dozens of homes, any agent that does that is actually not doing their job for the buyer. So let me share with you this process and how it works. Now, I just said right there, what I'm not going to do is take you out weekend after weekend showing you dozens of homes. And any agent that does do that is doing it wrong. So I just said it, I set a boundary. So now what you're going to do is explain the process to the buyer. Step 1 is what I want to do. Actually, let me back up for a second. What you would do is explain the process to the buyer and then actually start to implement it. So let me give you an overview what the process is, and then we'll actually start doing. So step 1 is I want to inform you a little bit about myself, because I think it's important, John, that you understand who I am, that you feel comfortable. Step 2 is then I like to ask you some questions. These questions are designed to help me get a good idea of the type of home that you're looking for. After I go through those questions, John, we're going to select the houses to go look at. Physically, you and I are going to, not physically, I'm sorry, you and I are going to go through all the homes that are currently for sale. online through the MLS, everything else. And together, I want you and I to pick together those houses that you want to go see. We'll select them. I'll make the calls. We'll set it up. We'll inspect the properties together. Then, assuming we find the right house today, we'll come back to the office. We'll go through the paperwork. So that way we can put together an offer that works for you and works for the seller. And then hopefully we'll get this thing done. And I would just want you to know, step 6 is I'm committed to ongoing service, that if you ever need anything from me, I'll always be here for you. So I just went through, here's the process of what we're gonna do. I'm setting my boundaries. Let's actually start to do the steps. So step 1, gang, you'd say to the buyer, first, let me tell you a little bit about myself. At this point, gang, what you're going to do, and I'm not gonna go through all the dialogue, let me give you all the concepts on how to do this. You'll get together. I wish I had a 3-ring binder here. No. So if you had like a binder where you would, when the buyer sits down, you're going to start to go through informing them about you. You're going to show them some certificates, some awards, education, achievements. In other words, remember what I said. Part of what has a buyer not buy and pull the trigger with you the first time they meet you is because they don't know you and they're trying to get to know you and trust you and feel your credibility. By you doing this, that's going to take several showings off the timetable. Yeah. So you first talk a little bit about you, then you're going to talk about your company. You can talk about maybe the mission statement, the broker, how they got into real estate, the market share. So now it's you and your company for that credibility piece. Now I'm going to show you, so that's step 1, inform. Now I'm going to show you some gifts that you can give a buyer. Also part of building rapport, okay? I love this. This is Alona. You can explain to a buyer, there's a process. I'm going to give you this flyer, which by the way, power agents, you'll notice the white space in the center. This is a place for you to drop in your contact information. Your photo, your phone number, the company. This shows a buyer the process and what it takes to buy a house. This gives you credibility. It's a nice gift to give them. I love this Monopoly board, okay? Here's the next thing. I would give them this checklist when it comes to, once they find the right house, here's what they need for the loan, so that's self-explanatory. If they have children, this is something my office, we put together. I'm very proud of this. This is actually a book. So I've taken all the pages and put it on one screenshot, but it's 8 ways to get kids excited about moving. The challenge with children is that, especially the younger ones, they may not be able to articulate the stress that this is, but studies have shown for children, moving from their home to a new home can be very stressful or it can be very exciting. And that depends on the energy that's around the child and the move and the parents. So we designed this for our power agents to give to buyers who have young children. There's even a moving checklist for kids. I love this. If they're traveling on the plane or the car, here's the first one. Bring your favorite stuffed animal to keep you company. Remember a nightlight or flashlight for the hotel room, assuming they're having to do that. So there's a few cool little moving checklists for kids. There's a new homeowner. This is all little tchotchkes, if that's the right term to use here, probably not. All little gifts to put together to give to the buyer the first time you meet them. Now, and here, let me just see something. Give me a second, gang, if I have this here. Yes, I'm sorry, I'm out of order right now. What I would do is create all these little flyers and forms I get and put it into a little packet and give this to the buyer the first time you meet them. So all these little things that I'm showing you now, these are great icebreakers to give to buyers. We created this brochure, the big white space there, gang, power agents, that's again for you to drop in your contact information. So here's first time buyers 101, just some tips for buyers to help them. It gives you credibility, all great stuff that we put together for you. Now I want to talk about buyer agency, right? So here's one of the things that we created about what a buyer's agent will do for the buyers. One of the things I highly recommend that you do is, if you're not doing this now, is to have buyers commit to you to represent them. This will save you a lot of headache, a lot of energy. You will not be chauffeuring them around constantly because you'll explain that's not how I work. when I work with my buyer's agents, with my buyers as their buyer's agent. Now, let me show you something else that we put together. And all of these flyers and everything, gang, that you're seeing here in this webinar is in the Power Program website under Playing with Buyers. Everything is there, okay? So, but you know, if you, let me just say something. For new Power agents, we're going to give you, or for everybody, we're going to give you a copy of the slides for Power agents at the end of this call, so to make it even easier for you, but it's all on the website. Okay. Now, I almost don't want to stop reading if you're reading this, okay? Because I want to set this up. Okay, let me go back. Sorry, gang. This is something new we created, and I'm really excited about it because buyers, if they don't have a buyer agency agreement with their agent, they still think, though, the agent's working for them. They don't understand. There's still a feeling that my agent is my agent, even though they didn't sign the agreement. And part of the lawsuit that NAR is going through is because that's what we've done as an industry. We're not being crystal clear with buyers that if you don't hire me to represent you, then I am not representing you. I'm representing the seller. In other words, I am working for them, not for you. And I think we need to, the buyer agency disclosure form that a lot of us use throughout the country is not sufficient to communicate clearly this distinction I'm sharing with you now. Therefore, we created this for our Power agents. I'm going to go through this. As a seller's agent, here's what I cannot or may not do for you as the buyer. So if you don't hire me as your buyer's agent, I'm representing the seller. I'm called the seller's agent. As a seller agent, my fiduciary responsibility is to the homeowner. Therefore, I cannot advise you on the offer you should make when you find a home you like. After writing your offer, I will not negotiate the best price for you, but instead I will negotiate the best price for the seller because I'm representing the seller. I cannot represent your best interest. My responsibility is to the seller. I may not call you when there are any new listings that come to market that meet your criteria because I'm not representing you. I may not give you preferred treatment with new listings to market over buyers in your price range. That I do have a buyer agency. So if there's a house that comes out and it's a house that you would like, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, but I have another buyer that's perfect for that house, and I have a buyer agency relationship, that my obligation is to get them into that house, not to you. I may not show you everything in your price range. I may not always be available to help you once you go into a contract. So gang, I know this may be jarring, especially for a buyer. It's like, wow, then why would I ever work with you? Well, this is why you need to hire an agent to represent you. And this is true about all agents. Now, I will tell you, gang, Power agents, we have this on the website for you. And we're putting it into a format where you'll be able to edit this. So if this is too strong for you and you want to lighten it up, you can do that. You'll be able to customize this form. Okay. Now, here's something else. To help you validate buyer agency, here's something else that we created. What I will save you as your agent. Now, this is just a sample. Well, let's go through it. Here's the concept, gang. What I did is I looked at when we are representing the buyer, what are all the things that we do? Be a neighborhood resource for answers, number one. Number two, research all active homes to find the best property for you. Number three, provide ready access to MLS listings and non-MLS listed properties. This is important because, you know, we're competing against Zillow. Zillow only gets MLS listings. There are some markets where there's listings that are only in-house. They ain't getting that information. Automate an email alert system for properties to find your buyers' needs. Recommend vetted vendors such as inspectors. Advice on best price to offer. Present and negotiate the lowest possible price. In other words, right there, there's a percentage. Like if I'm representing you as the buyer, studies have shown that I can save my buyers 2 to 5% of the actual final contract price. Anyway, I'm not going to go through all these, gang. I think you get the point. So here's what I did. I'm very proud of this. What we did is we put a number on each one of these activities that we do for buyers. This is the value of these things. And if you look at the bottom, it says it comes to $3,390 plus. What's the plus? Well, there's a couple items in there that were priceless. There's also the percentage, number 7, about the percentage that we negotiate a price down. So that's not represented in that dollar amount. So here's what we're basically saying. By a buyer hiring you as an agent, they're roughly saving over $3,300 plus. Therefore, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, here's what we need. This is how I work. The guaranteed minimum buyer agency fee, I'm reading the bottom, gang, for my service is blank. Now you put in there whatever you want. Let me suggest, for example, that you put a percentage in there and of the sales price. So let's say it's 2% or 3%. So you put a percentage in there of the commission fee that you need minimum in helping a buyer, representing the buyer. So if, let's say, a selling agent is paying out a buyer agency fee less than what your minimum guarantee is, the buyer needs to make up for it. But the good thing for the buyer is that you're saving them well above your minimum fee. They're getting a discount, essentially. So this helps create some clarity when it comes to how much you need to get paid, what the relationship is, what the boundaries are. Okay, now let's go on. So you're going to do this after you talk about you and your company. Okay, so when you talk about you and your company, then that's the time when you talk to the buyers about making a choice whether they want to hire you as their buyer's agent or not. Once they make that decision, then you'll start to educate them about the marketplace. Here's what's happening in the MLS. Here's the stats, the gifts that you want to give them. This is the time when you kind of wrap up this relationship building in step 1. One of the things that I would do also in motivating buyers to buy, I'm going back, is when you educate them about the market, what's happening, to get them motivated about buying. One of the quotes we have from Warren Buffett said, this Warren Buffett made his fortune from the stock market, and he's saying, even with the stock market and him becoming a multi-billionaire, if he could, he would buy up hundreds of thousands of single-family homes, because held for a long period of time, good rates, they're actually a better investment than stocks, which, by the way, we're seeing a lot of craziness in the stock market recently. There's a lot of insecurity. Let me tell you what's happening. We have the inversion, an inverted yield rate. There's a lot of things happening in the market, and here's what I think is going to happen. We're going to see an increase actually in our real estate market because people are taking their money out of the stock market. Here's another thing you can show a buyer before you start taking them out, showing them how, if they have children, studies have been done that children who live in a house that's owned as opposed to a rental, they actually have better math grades, better English grades, less behavioral problem. So showing a buyer this when you meet them for the first time, and if they have children, and if they're a first-time buyer, so they're coming from rental, you're basically telling the buyer, listen, you're not just buying a house for yourself, you're buying it for your children. This is how important home ownership is. Here's another chart that we put together to show a buyer that while the interest rates are low, and actually, gang, I apologize, this is a older chart. We have a newer one that actually shows the interest starts at 3%. Sorry, 3%, 4%, 5%. Basically, if you're looking at the screen right now, this shows a buyer that for every 1% interest rates go up, not only does their mortgage go down, but their payment still goes higher. So that 1% change in interest rates has a huge impact in the buying power for the buyer. And right now, rates that I don't remember the last time they've ever been this low. So this is absolutely the time for a buyer to buy. And going back to, here's another form that we put together. Again, this is something that you can do to show a buyer, here's what you'll do for them as a buyer's agent. So these are all little tchotchkes that you can give to the buyer. I know I'm using the wrong term, tchotchkes. I can't think of another word. Somebody type another word. All these little gifts, these wonderful little items to give to that buyer the first time you meet them. And it's all in that tab there for you, in the Playing with Buyer tab. All right, now, Let's go to the next thing. We're going to ask questions. Let me see how we're doing on our time. So after you inform the buyer about how you work and what you expect from them, the boundaries, you're going to ask questions. Now, these questions, we know these are basic questions, and I don't have to go through these questions with you because we gave these questions to you as a gift. So let me jump to that gift. It's this, the buyer questionnaire. So everybody, even if you're not a power agent, this was a gift that we're giving you all. It's in the handout. You can download it if you want. It's in that little come and scan dashboard of GoToWebinar, and it says handouts, and you click on it, you'll see the PDF. But in case you're confused or you're on Facebook Live, we're going to email it to you anyway. Okay, but power agents that are online, you have access to this anyway. Okay, now what we're going to do is select houses to look together. By the way, if Sarah is still with me in my office, if you wouldn't mind stepping into my office for a second, I just want to show you something. So selecting houses, here's what we're going to do. So Sarah, if you hear me, when you sit down with the buyers, it's important that they feel part of the process in choosing the houses that they want to go see. It helps create urgency as they're choosing the houses. It builds their commitment to buy. This is one of the things about the internet has empowered buyers to be more part of the process. And so if we meet a buyer for the first time, we definitely want to bring them into the office to sit down with them, look at all these houses that we could possibly take a look at. Now, what we want to do is we want to guide the buyers to the shiny pennies. This is a concept that I've taught many a times. You know, if you think about it, there's two ways to work with buyers. You can take one buyer and you show them a bunch of houses, or you take one house and you show it 10 times. Studies have shown time and time again, when you take one house and you show it 10 times, that is absolutely the best way to do that. Now, the one house that you should be showing 10 times is the shiny penny. The shiny penny is the house in that price range that has the best bang for the buck. We can take buyers and put them into price categories. And therefore, we take houses and put those in price categories. And if you have a price category, let's say a 400 to 450, and let's say there's 20 houses that you could show a buyer, the rule of thumb is there's one or two that's better than all the others. Those are the shiny pennies, and those are the houses that buyers wind up buying. This is why buyers never buy what they say they're going to buy. So what we want to do when we sit down with a buyer that we meet for the first time and we show them all the houses that they can choose, we want to guide them towards the shiny penny. We want to eliminate the ones that we know the closets are really small, or this says 4 bedrooms, but that 1 bedroom really isn't a closet. It isn't really a bedroom because it's really too small to be functional. Like, we get rid of the negative houses, and then we guide them to, you know what, this house is great value. I think we should go look. I've seen it. There's a lot of activity. This is a hot house. See, having a buyer pick the shiny penny is easy. Now, by the way, one of the questions that I always get from, let me go back. One of the questions I get, well, Darryl, if you sit down with a buyer the first time you meet them and you show them, 30 houses in their price range and they pick 5 shiny pennies, how are you going to show those houses right away? Well, here's what you do is before a buyer comes out, before we meet a buyer, when we set up that appointment, we already have an idea of the shiny pennies in the price range for those buyers. So what we'll do is we'll make sure we have access to those 5 houses. We may call the listing agent and set up a tentative appointment. We may, if there's a key in a lockbox. So in other words, we're kind of we set up pre-appointments for those 5. So that way when they choose the 5, we're ready to go. All right, now, here's a motto power agents live by: less stress, income higher, work the house, not the buyer. That's how we want to work with these buyers, is take those shiny pennies, work it until you sell it. There is, because I'm cramming a lot of content, and I think it's great content for you in this 1 hour, there is a good 30-minute CD that explains the shiny penny concept even more. And it's under if you go to the powerprogram.com website, it's under free items. And when you go to free items, you'll see that there's a bunch of things, but that one, it says explain the shiny penny. You can download that audio. That's a gift for you guys. Okay, now let's talk about inspecting. When we say inspect, we're telling the buyers we're inspecting the houses that they pick. We're actually showing them, right? So what you want to do is do a daily update every day to find those shiny pennies. You want to take that one shiny penny, show it 3 times if you can. If you see a hot house that comes to the market, Instead of just showing it once, twice, three, take 3 buyers and bring those 3 buyers to that house at the same time. Create like your own mini open house. If you take a shiny penny and you show it to 3 different buyers at the same time, I guarantee you're going to wind up selling that house. When you preview, make sure you ask a homeowner if they're home why they're selling. Sometimes a seller will give you some insights that aren't on the MLS, and you can find a shiny penny by asking that question. When you're the listing agent, explain to the seller their job. And that is every time that there's a showing, you want to turn the lights on and leave. Do not help the selling agent to try and sell the house, because you may say something that would actually be a negative to the buyers, not a positive. The agent knows the buyers. You don't. Stay out of the appointment. Next thing is take the scenic route first when you're going to, if you've got a house that is next to, you know, a store or a firehouse, like there's something negative about the home, but it's still a shiny penny because it's priced to sell, because they consider that when pricing it. You don't want to have the negative thing be the first thing the buyer sees. So you would take a different route to the house, so if you can, right? So they don't see that first, they see the house. Now you've got to show it to the buyers, right? You've got to disclose that, and they've got to see the area, but I don't want the firehouse to be the first thing they see. So I may come down the other way of the street. The next thing is lower their expectations when you're showing the house. Don't be driving to the house saying, oh my God, you're gonna love this house. It's so wonderful. They did this and they did that. Like you're building it up, and they're gonna go in, well, yeah, it's nice, but it's not that nice. It's better to do the opposite. If the house is awesome, you say, you know, it's a great house. Might need a paint here and there, but I think you're gonna like it. So by lowering, you want them to walk into the house and say, what paint? This is like mint. I wish my house looks like this now. So that's what you want to create. Park across the street. This is stupid, this little thing. Makes a big difference. If you pull into the driveway, they can't soak up the house, the front lawn, the curb appeal is too, like pull into drive, it's in their face. Even in front of the house is too close. Park across the street. They can stand, they look, oh, nice. They check it out. Little thing makes a difference. Take only a pen and pen with you. Do not take the MLS information. Try to avoid that, because all that's going to happen is, have you ever seen people go to like this? I was at Disneyland once and I downloaded this app, and the app showed me where I was in the park. And so it was a little map. It showed me where I was in the park. It showed me the wait times and the rides, blah, blah, blah. And you know what I noticed? I'm there with my family, and I got my iPhone, I got the app, and I'm walking around Disney staring at the map. And I had an epiphany, because then I looked up, I saw other people doing it. I saw a whole ton of people doing it. And I thought, what the hell? I am not in Disney. I'm in the app over here. Like my whole, like the map is not the territory. So get rid of, don't bring anything with you. The more you bring with you, a buyer is looking at the feature sheet and the taxes and blah, blah, blah. That's not the property. This is the property. You want them out feeling it, experiencing it. Plus, it gives you a reason to go back to the office and answer any questions about the taxes, what stays and what doesn't, if you leave it at the office. Use one car, because I don't have to tell you, you build a relationship with them. You get to see the reaction. Again, don't forget what I said. They're not just checking out the house, they're checking out you. If they insist on taking a second car, drive really fast and teach them a lesson. All right, next thing. Don't tell them the price until after you've shown it. So when you go into the house, as you're walking in, don't tell them, oh, now this house is $499.9, because all that's going to do is you're putting in the house, this house is worth $500. Every house you're showing them, they picked it, so it's in their price range. Don't do it. Like if they ask you, say, don't worry about it. Let's just go see if you like it. Doesn't matter what the price is. We're looking for a feeling. That's all we're looking for right now. Let's just, how does it feel? So no distractions. Price, taxes, lot size, forget it. Let's just walk in and see if it talks to you. That's what you want to create with the buyer. Watch for buying signals. You know what those are. Oh, this is great. How big are the dimensions? Does this stay? You know, start placing their furniture. Oh, we can convert this to that. Those are all buying signals. That's what you want to focus on. The next thing is focus on the monthly payment. So not the price. When you do tell them the price, always follow up with what the monthly payment is for the house, and show their favorite house the second time. So if you show 5 houses, bada bing, house 1, house 2, house 3. Now, house 3, they love. Ooh, I love it. We want to buy it. Don't take an offer yet. Show them house number 4. They'll go, no, 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 we really like number 3. You sure? Yes, let's make an offer. No, 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 we got one more. Take them to the 5th one, because what will happen by the time you take them to the 5th one, they're really more committed to the 3rd. When you take it away a little bit, people want it more, right? So, and plus, it validates the 3rd choice when they see the other 2. Now, after the 5th one, you still like that 3rd house. Listen, let's go back. Let's see if we can run through really quick. Let me tell you something. When you bring them back to that house, if you're still out the same day that you're showing properties and they like that house and you bring them back before you go to the office, but let me tell you, bada bing, you're going to sell that out. Because here's what happens. The first time they buy the house with emotion. The second time they go through, they buy it through logic. In other words, they start selling themselves on why this is the best house. And it's magical when that happens. So, okay. The last thing is ongoing service. Let me see to summarize what we covered today. I think we covered a lot. Now, hang on. I have a gift for you guys, so hang in there. Continue and build, maintain inventory, because the more you have inventory, the better you're going to be with buyers. You'll be more effective. Get them to sit down with you face to face, so for you to have that buyer interview, so you can show them all these little nice tchotchke things. Again, I'm using the wrong word there, but you want to create that relationship, that trust, and get them excited about buying. Use that 6-step buying visual, because it helps clarify, here's what they're going to learn. And that motto, less stress, income higher, work the house, not the buyer, the shiny penny list. Now, for those of you that are not power agents, I have an invitation for you. And here's what it is. That if you were to go to that website right when I'm done, not yet, let me finish. And you go to webinar bonus, we're giving you gifts. Now, here's the gifts that you're getting. First of all, this program is only $27 a month, but the bonuses you're going to get is you're getting first 30 days free. And I'm going to show you what I'm giving you now. Complete access to the program, a copy of today's slides, which to me, in my opinion, just to sign up to get a copy of the slides is powerful for you, right? There's other bonuses that we're giving you today that's part of this, the 40 things that everything you've seen, you're getting today. But for those of you who don't know, this program, we have weekly calls every Monday. It's live. See, this webinar, you really can't ask questions really. If we have time, we're going to, but because I'm going to take 2 more minutes. But this call every Monday, it's live. Like, you can actually talk to me back and forth. We role play. People tell us they love the Monday calls. It sets the tone for the week. There is all of these other trainings that we've done over the past years that we put on the website for you, so you can watch if you need help with prospecting and the listing appointment. We interview other top agents. We have a digital magazine. There's recommended vendors. We're actually going to be rolling out a CRM for our power agents, where all of this content is going to be customized for them. We have a dedicated Facebook group right now. We have a bunch of people on Facebook right now that are watching this webinar. And what we do is we load. This is something we got not too long ago from one of our power agent, Valerie. She said, I'm so pumped from the webinar. I got my first FSBO listing yesterday. It took 3 weeks of follow-up. There's several agents, but hey, she's a power agent. So I love these things when we see that. So we told you about the dedicated website that just has so much dialogue and social media posts and flyers and certificates, all stuff to help you get more. And this is only $27 a month. People think that we are asking not enough. So Sarah, are you still with me on the call? Because I have 5 minutes left. Are you with me, Sarah?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can. Sarah, was there any questions that you saw that come through?
Yes. Let's see.
Now, while she's doing it, Peter said, you mentioned we don't close. Peter, who's one of our power agents, I said this, he didn't hear the rest. We don't close. Here's the motto, power agents. We don't close people, we coach people. So when you're sitting with buyers, you're coaching them. When you sit with a seller on a listing appointment, you're coaching them. So we don't close people, we coach them. And we invite action, right? So when you're talking to a FSBO and you're coaching them about selling their property, you invite them to take action consistent with them moving to Florida to retire. And the action consistent with that is to hire a real estate professional based on what you share. So anyway, there's so much more that I could share with Julie. I'm sorry, Sarah, what's the question?
Okay, so is this the best time to buy?
Is this time? Yeah, well, you all know real estate is always a great time to buy because long term it is the best investment. And again, I'm quoting Warren Buffett. So if you're meeting with a buyer and they ask you, is now a great time to buy? You should show them the Warren Buffett flyer and say, listen, this multi-billionaire, he says real estate is always a great time to buy when interest rates are as low as they are right now. What else you got, Sarah?
What can we do when they start looking for properties on free websites?
Yeah, so, okay, great question. This is a common question we get. So when you meet a buyer for the first time and they're looking at all of these other houses for sale, you need to let them know, listen, this is why you need to hire a buyer's agent, because the problem with all of these websites is they're not the most accurate, up-to-date information. When you are working with me as your agent, I see things that are immediate. I see things that are not available immediate. I see things when there's offers. If there's a shiny penny that's perfect for you, I'll know that there's offers maybe coming in on that house that no website could tell you that. No website could tell you that there's 3 buyers that are looking to maybe put an offer in on that house. How do I know? Because that agent who listed the house is a colleague of mine, and I just saw him at a board event, and I have his cell number. So there is, if you want the most up-to-minute information, this is why you need to hire me as your buyer's agent, because that's like what if you are driving a car and you're looking at the speedometer and the speedometer is 10 days old? You can't drive a car like that. Well, that's what happens when you use all of these other websites. The days old, the information. Okay, what else we got?
Your recommendation on how to qualify a buyer or renter.
Well, the couple of ways. With a renter, let's do that one. You should have a loan officer that you have a relationship with, and the first thing you want to do is do a credit check. If you were to search credit check, a tenant credit check, there is actual companies. We have one. I don't know the name of the company, so I can't give it to you now. Because I invest in properties too, my family does, and we don't use it that often, but they will actually do a criminal check along with their FICO score and everything else. You can find those companies online just by Googling tenant pre-qualifications. When it comes to buyers for houses, you ask them those basic questions over the phone. How much money are they working with to put down, closing costs, but then you have them do a pre-qualification with a lender. Yeah, so put them in touch with the lender. What else, Sarah?
We got, okay, let's see.
Some of the best parts of I think the webinar are these questions that come in after the fact. And if we don't have any more, Sarah, then that's okay too, because I covered a lot.
To get a buyer's agreement, can you say about your duty to the seller even if you do not have that listing? Because if it's not my listing, I cannot say I'm working for the seller to the buyer.
Okay, so you have to look at what your state when it comes to this now, right? So if you might have a state that if you are an agent, but you're not the listing agent, but you're not a buyer's agent, then you might be a dual agent or a transactional agent. Like, so some state laws have different terminologies for that. What you want to do is then take that form and tweak it and not be so black and white the way I was when I created it for you. But you can say things like, I'm not 100% representing you. I also am representing this. I'm a transactional agent, and here's what that means. I'm not going to negotiate the best price for you. That's not, so there is still a lot of, here's the concept, depending on your state, gang, okay, is that you want to tell the buyer, if they don't hire you, you're not representing them fully in their best interest. And that's why they really should hire a buyer's agent. And if they decide not to hire you as the buyer's agent, you'll still show them property. But now they're not, watch this, they're not a client, they're a customer. That's different. They're a customer, not a client. Now, customers, you still want to treat nice. You want to still make them feel good about the experience, but you're not representing them. You're representing the vendor. Like if you go into a department store, you got customers. So, you go into a shoe store, you're a customer, but that company is representing the shoe company. They need to be profitable. They need to do what's best for the company, right? They'll still do. All right, I think you get the point. What is? Do we have anything else? So we might take one more.
What can you suggest when working with a buyer who is reluctant to talk with a lender to get qualified?
Well, I would just be concerned if they're not willing to talk to the buyer, to the lender, that maybe there's something there that they're not wanting to share. I would tell them, this is how I work. You know, if you don't want to talk to the lender, I don't know if you're pre-qualified, it hurts you. You not talking to a lender first could cost you thousands of dollars, because if you find a house that you like and you don't have that pre-commitment letter, pre-qualification letter, and another buyer does, they're going to choose that buyer over you, or they're going to expect you to pay more money. There's absolutely no reason why you wouldn't do that. So need you to do it. All right, gang, I hope this helped you. I see that we're actually a couple minutes past. Become a power agent. Go to the website now so you can get access to the recording, and you can get, if you're a current power agent, this whole recording and all the slides are going to be given to you. So on the website, you'll get an email about that. Facebook Live, thanks for calling in, gang. I'm going to, don't forget, we don't just help people buy and sell real estate. We help them get to their next level. The money we make is a gauge as to how many lives we've touched. So go touch a lot of lives, and the money will follow. Thank you, gang. Thanks for spending an hour with me. I appreciate you very much. All right, bye-bye.